The following table is one that I created when I was looking for different examples of how story could be used across contents, meaning it doesn't just have to be for English classes where students practice their writing, but it could be for social studies, for science, math, and technology classes. The first one is for grade 3, and the TEKS cover understanding the roles of heroes in shaping our culture and analyzing the heroic deeds of individuals. So, the Storybird has some raccoons, and they talk about how every hour of every day there are Americans that are dying for this country. It talks about the sacrifices that they make and how difficult it is for them, and that we need to be grateful and remember this. That was the first one. The next one covers learning about civics and learning about, learning about the Underground Railroad. This is for 5th grade, and talking about the social changes that occurred in the United States during the 19th century and slavery, states' rights, and the effects of the Civil War on our country. So this Storybird is where a child and their mother are telling a story about the Underground Railroad, and it uses specialized vocabulary for the subject and talking about sanctuaries for the people who were trying to escape slavery. So there's that one. This last one is for grade 3, and it's talking about communities and their importance and the importance of forming communities. So it's talking about freedom, and I love it because it's poetic and yet it has a very strong voice about our duty as neighbors and as citizens in a country and what it means to be free. There were so many different subjects for social studies. It wasn't too hard. For science, we have grade 4 with ways to conserve. There were a lot of storyboards on recycling and helping the environment. I really liked this one because it specifies a child learning about it at school and wondering what he could do, and then it gives different examples, very simple but definitely meaningful, of little things that we can do. Planting a tree, and taking a bath instead of a shower to not waste water, a small bath instead of a shower, and turning off the lights when we leave a room. So really fun, simple story, but covers a lot of the material. This one was kind of cool, about our immune system, and it uses very specific terminology, so it would be a great way for students to show what they know in their science class about their immune system. Lots of phagocytes and natural killer cells, and it talks about inflammation, antimicrobe proteins, antigens, antibodies, and I really love the pictures they chose that tell this story. Helper T's, the B and the CT scales, so it really gets very specific about the immune system. That's grade 7 stuff. And back to our environment in grade 8, looking at recycling and its impact on our environment. And I decided to grab some 8th grade TEKS since I'm a junior high teacher. So this one has just, each little page has its own little short story. So this is one that students could probably even collaborate on, and maybe each student comes up with a story and they edit and revise with each other. and tell the story about how recycling can help our environment. Math was a little harder, but it wasn't as hard as I thought it was. We have, in kindergarten, they do two-dimensional shapes and three-dimensional solids, and they have to identify these shapes and these solids. And this one does that. It's really cool. I'm not really sure how they search for these pictures, but they start with squares and they describe it with the right terminology. A circle with the same distance from the center, triangles everywhere on the page, rectangles, ovals, and so on and so forth until the rhombus, pentagon, and trapezoids. That was a fun one. I don't know that I would use that one with kindergarten, but it definitely covered those kindergarten teaks. But maybe I would. Maybe I, as a teacher, would create it and read it to them. This is 3rd grade, and this is where geometry comes in, of measuring different shapes, recognizing them, and know what belongs and does not belong to a category of shapes. This is for Q is for quadrilateral, and the story of Q, and it talks about the different types of quadrilaterals with the rectangles, kites, trapezium, and that one is about quadrilaterals. And last we have grade 3 with fractions. Fractions continue after grade 3, but I figured this is kind of where it starts becoming a difficult skill. They start to try to implement it. And I loved this one because it gave some great real-life examples of everyday fractions. The kid is like, when will I ever use this? We'll never use this. And the dad's like, what time is it? And it's 1/4 noon. Oh, you used a fraction. And music on his iPod. And he was talking about the timing of the music. Oh, we used a fraction again. Mom said to remove 1/3 of the pumpkin, no more than 1/3 of the pumpkin. It's another fraction. So each one of these is a real life example of using fractions, which I love because I like making learning real world for kids. Last one is digital citizenship. These are kind of ongoing teaks that all the grade levels are encouraged to share. She's somewhere in the internet, and it talks about how much she's on the phone, and that's all she ever does. Instead of eating dinner with everybody, all she cares about is what's on her phone. And finally, she's texting on her phone, and she gets into a car crash, and then she doesn't remember anymore. And once her memory is gone, her parents don't give her a phone again, and she doesn't even know how to use a phone or a computer or anything. And instead, she ends up being with her friends and loving life and enjoying herself. She kind of gets a new lease on life. This one is some different ones. That was grade 5. This is grade 4. Technology's curse and how to fight it. So it gives you all the great things that technology can do, but it also gives them some really simple things that they can do instead of always being on their phones or on their tablets. So trying something new, get out of your comfort zone, and talking to people in real life and how important that is. And the last one for technology, again, we have digital citizenship, and this is about being, in grade 5, safe and responsible and ethical when we are using technology, which I think is a huge thing, especially for grade 5 when they're all starting to get their phones. It talks about all the fun things that technology can do, but it gives them little rules about what they need to do when they're in the classroom and how they can make technology fun and useful for class. So these were just a few of the ones. It really helped me kind of brainstorm and come up with a lot of different ways that teachers could be using storyboards in their classrooms.